It's the Big Picture Podcast with Gus and Dominick Pfister.
Hello, my name is Dominick Pfister.
And I'm Gus Pfister.
And welcome back for episode 5 of the Big Picture Podcast, the podcast where we paint the big picture regarding the contemporary issues within the sports landscape. We're brought to you by Mellow Subs on 242 Genesee Street in Utica, New York. If you missed us last time, you can find us on our YouTube channel, the link to which can be found on our Twitter page at podcast_picture, on our Facebook and Instagram accounts, Big Picture Sports. Additionally, we are excited to announce that we are on streaming platforms. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, we're on SoundCloud, and we're on Google Play.
Exciting stuff happening here with the Big Picture. Today we'll be joined by DJ Carstensen, a former college basketball player and current NCAA Division I official. We're going to be talking about all matters between college basketball, the NCAA, G League, and essentially all things in between.
Gus, do you remember being 17 years old?
What a time.
What were we, juniors in high school, seniors in high school? What a simpler time.
Getting ready for college, trying to figure out where we wanted to go. No clue what we were going to do.
No clue at all. Most 17-year-olds just think about stresses like who to take to prom, preventing acne, getting their parents' car for the weekend, getting their new driver's license, being popular in high school. But the average 17-year-old doesn't worry about whether or not to make millions of dollars or pursue a college education.
Absolutely. And that's the basis of this show today. We're going to be talking about the NCAA and how it has impacted the livelihoods of college basketball players, especially because the NCAA started as a football organization, essentially. And after there were many injuries within football, I believe it was the year 1905, people were getting injured and they were trying to preserve the integrity of amateur athletics. So part of that solution by President Roosevelt was to get an Ivy League crew together and kind of make an overreaching body of bylaws and how we can make this happen. And that was originally a 68-member course, and the NCAA was born.
And what a great organization it's been ever since, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole point of schooling is to better ourselves and so we can create the best lives possible for ourselves. So why not let these basketball players, these kids who are superb talents, seniors in high school, try to make their millions of dollars at a young age rather than go to school for a year, not really plug into the campus community and get out.
Yeah, it's a big rabbit hole, especially in college basketball, because unlike football, you have to play two or 3 years, I believe it's 3 years. In college basketball, they have the one and done rule. So that's where we've seen this explosion of talent. People coming for 1 year and then they're leaving, they're going to the NBA. And just some quick stats about that is you have to be 19 years old to be drafted in the NBA. That's a rule that has been passed down for years and years. And there's only been 10 high school seniors drafted into the NBA. We've seen guys like Kobe and KG, but we've also seen some pretty, tough talent coming in. Kwame Brown, for example, is touted as a big star and just never panned out. Since 2010, there have been 106 college freshmen drafted after their first year. In 2018, the freshman class had 18 of the 64 total draft picks, all freshmen after their first year declaring for the NBA draft.
And the NBA is expected to eventually eliminate this one-and-done rule, paving the way for high school stars like this Jalen Green, who just decommitted from Memphis. He's going to be the first player. He was the first player to decommit from a school to pursue the G League, which is It's
the new developmental league. It's essentially the NBA's way of getting around the one-and-done rule. Since they haven't abolished it yet, even though there's reports from Commissioner Adam Silver that you could see it as early as 2021, which I don't really see, but they want younger talent in the NBA because they're more marketable. And Jalen Green was the number one prospect in this class. And he decided that I can forego going to college. There's no point in me going for 1 year when I can get expert level training from veterans, coaches, everybody, and make money along the way. He's expected to make like close to $500,000.
And I love this concept of the G League because basketball, and we talked about football a little earlier, but in football, these high school seniors, you're not going to get a high school senior ready to play in the NFL. You need a couple years, put on some pounds, put on some muscle. But this G League, these kids are ready to play. Some of these, they're so talented. Some of these kids, like your Kobe's, your LeBrons, who would largely benefit off of actually training basketball for an entire year in this G League, making some money that they otherwise would not get by going to school.
Yeah, and it's a lot like a college soccer kind of camp where it's not like they're going to be playing 50 games a year. They're going to be getting training. It's essentially a training developmental league where they're only going to get 12 games, roughly, but they're going to be getting the expert knowledge from coaches who have been in the league for 20 years, from veterans who played for 15, 20 years, from experts and scouts that could tell them where to enhance their game, what they're going to need to improve on before jumping into the NBA level.
And I think the 19, I don't like that rule, the 19-year-old age minimum. I don't know how I feel about that. What do you think about that?
It's tough to say because if someone's ready, like you said, why not give it a shot? It's a very slippery slope because we value college a lot in the country, and we see it as a great opportunity not only for an academic standpoint, but to better your future, going forward. And one of the big things that college basketball players learn in a college basketball setting is how to deal with a crowd. If you're playing in the SEC, you might play in front of 20,000 people. That you're dealing with pressure you wouldn't be getting in the G League. They get maybe 200 to 500 people a game if they're lucky. There's no media at NBA G League games. Sometimes they just don't even show up. At the end of a college game, you're going to be getting anywhere from 20 to 25 media personalities. So you're getting a lot of exposure to pressure. You're getting a lot of exposure to marketability, and you're getting a lot of exposure on how to deal with the media because that's not something that's really taught. You kind of learn how to deal with that, and everybody does that in their own way.
That's certainly something I think we take for granted. So I certainly think that the sport has almost, college basketball has almost been marginalized in the larger sports culture to a place where the NCAA tournament is all that matters.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of people going and watching games in early February, December. Maybe you'll get the start up at the beginning of the year with the tournaments. You'll get Duke playing Kentucky or something like that, and you'll tune in, see how the teams are going to be, and then it drops off for a while. And then March rolls around, and the money that is generated in March is just unbelievable.
It's about $933 million.
Just for the tournament.
Just for the tournament. And how many times do we get to March and we look at the brackets and, oh man, I should have watched more college basketball this year. We watched the Dukes and the Kentuckys that first week. We watched those matchups, but then it kind of fades away. We kind of almost not forget about it, but we see the scores on the bottom ticker, and then when it's kind of like studying for a test almost. You have the assignment the whole week, and then March comes, and now we're trying to research and we're trying to cram everything before we make our picks and decide who we think is going to win.
Yeah, you're right. It's exactly like a test. And it's a test for these players, too, because they're trying to get seen by the scouts. They're trying to make their way into the NBA. And they're going to be on SportsCenter every night. They're going to be there's huge national television contracts. Just millions and millions of dollars generated. And these players are getting invested in their company.
And, well, like we talked about in episode 2 with Michael Jordan, these athletes they're cash cows. They're symbols of American capitalism. They're commodities to these agencies, these networks. They generate so much money.
Absolutely.
But now we have, very excited, we have DJ Carstensen now on the line. DJ is a former Division I basketball standout and was going into his 15th consecutive year of officiating March Madness, the NCAA tournament, before the COVID pandemic hit and canceled sports. DJ, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, guys?
Good. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem.
DJ, I have a question. As a basketball official, do you notice any difference between teams that play a significant amount of freshmen versus teams that play more upperclassmen, juniors, and seniors?
A little bit. I think the teams that where you see the players back every year, that are junior and senior dominated, tend to play more together, than teams that have maybe higher profile, recruits, but haven't had a chance to play a lot together. So, you see that. I think, earlier in the season, you see some upsets or teams that you don't think should win because they have been playing together for, 2-3 years.
There's a lot of talk with the new G League and the NBA one and done rule. At any point, do you feel like the NBA will completely get rid of the one and done rule and more players will be inclined to just go straight to the NBA and forego college in general?
Yeah, I think, that the one and done had some interest, probably more so last year. I think with everything going on, I think that's lost some steam, the one and done. And part of it is the NBA, it's not something that's super important to them, right? I think the one and done actually helps them. It's super important to the high school kids and to the agents, but the NBA looks at it as, hey, we put this rule into effect. But one of the reasons why is we made some bad decisions on kids because we weren't able to really evaluate them coming out of high school. Now, with kids having the opportunity to go to the G League or go over to the NBL in Australia or to play at the college level, it gives us another year to evaluate them, hoping that, we don't make bad decisions as GMs, so that when they come into the NBA, they're more successful. We don't have the busts or the kids that don't last. It also helps the NBA because kids are able to sort of develop a brand or a recognition by playing college basketball because you see them on TV so often. So when they come into the NBA, it helps the NBA from a recognition and branding standpoint.
Talking about helping the NBA out, in your personal opinion, what is the best decision in the interest of the athlete, the individual?
Well, the athlete, I think, the way they look at it is they want to be able to go from high school to the NBA because that benefits them. So, if you ask any high school kid who's being looked at or talked about with the ability to go to the NBA, they would be, wanting to go straight from high school because there's no downside really for them. I mean, going to college, is helpful in some respects, but the kids that have their eyes on the NBA right away, that 4 or 5 months at the college level outside of maybe becoming more recognizable because you're playing on television, I'm not sure, what the benefits would be, for them.
Obviously, with COVID canceling the NCAA tournament and money lost and viewership going down, how can the NCAA College Basketball Association really rebound from this type of year?
Well, I don't know if they, they'll rebound, but it definitely, has an effect, and it has an effect much greater on basketball than it does football because all the schools generate income from the NCAA tournament. So whether you're ranked, number 1 in the country or you're ranked number 350th, you're getting money, and that money comes from the contract that the NCAA has with the television contract. So whether it's $500,000 or $1 million or whatever, it has a big impact on college basketball. The schools, because a lot of the schools only play basketball, the smaller schools that only play basketball that aren't a Power 5 football school. So they have to give it, they have to do all they can to make this, happen, because it has such an impact, not only on basketball, but for some basketball schools, say like a Gonzaga or somebody who, makes a lot of money with their basketball program, and probably helps some of their other programs. It's important to find a way to, make this happen. Just, like football too, for that matter.
Do you think that in the coming years we'll see a shift where the top talent in the country goes to the G League, and the G League starts to generate revenue as stars go out of high school towards the G League, and then they compete with the NCAA?
I think you'll see. I think you'll see some, go to the G League, but I think a lot of it depends with the new NCAA rule on the athletes being able to generate income, from their likeness. Right. So, I think, some of the NBA people like to see the kids go to college because they like to see them play before 15,000 people, with national TV, with pressure, playing on the road in a hostile environment compared to playing with 1,500 people in the gym and nobody cares who wins. So, going to the G League, if that's all you're doing, it may expedite your improvement, playing against better players, and all you're doing is training. But I don't know if the monetary is going to be the bottom line, if this ability for college kids to make money off their likeness, because that would equate to what the G League is doing, and then you also get to to generate a brand. Zion Williamson would be known no matter what, but would he be known as much if he didn't go to Duke and play college basketball? I think his brand, went way up being in college. College basketball. That would be an example of an advantage, going to college, rather than going to, say, the G League or over to Australia.
You mentioned athletes getting paid on their likeliness, and this is a lot of pushback that the NCAA has been getting for years over amateurism and should athletes get paid, and it's a long, ongoing debate. So is there a way that the NCAA can kind of tone this down and make a lot of people happy, or are their hands kind of tied in this regard?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think really the likeness and the ability to make money is there aren't a lot of athletes that are gonna, when it came out, it makes it sound like it affects all athletes. It really only affects a very small select group. And those are the ones that'll go on to play at the next, the next level. So I'm not sure, the NCAA's got to sort of, dance a fine, line, because, they're trying to, give more rights to the athletes, but also, not make it a wild, wild west scenario where they have no control over, what's going on, and, who's able to, pay money to, athletes, and how much money, and, then you're going to get back into the, recruiting issues.
Yeah, well, DJ, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for your time. It was great having you.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The NCAA and the G League, there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered, hopefully within the next coming months or years, but there's a lot of uncertainty based around both. So as a fan, I'm excited to see how not only they bounce back from the games lost and the money lost from COVID, but how they take care of athletes going forward.
And to make the ultimate sports pun, Gus, you mentioned the rebound. Well, we're going to watch how the whole sport of basketball rebounds after all this going forward. And I think that's all we have for today. Until next time, I'm Dominic.
And I'm Gus Pfister.
And this is the Big Picture Podcast. We'll see you next time.
It's the Big Picture Podcast with Gus and Dominick Pfister.